The left just won't stop covering for the dangerous migrant criminals that President Trump is deporting. Let's start with their rising star, Jasmine Crockett. She thinks it's xenophobic to call criminals criminals.
When you start to decide that just because somebody came from another country, they are automatically some kind of criminal, that does sound kind of xenophobic to me.
Another Democratic congresswoman thinks it's a dog whistle to call bloodthirsty gang members by their gang name.
Tren de Aragua has become a dog whistle to justify every racist, xenophobic action this administration wants to take, particularly against Latino men.
Oh my God. Jesse, we need to stop saying Tren de Aragua now. We might offend the libs.
I like saying it. Tren de Aragua. It's the only Spanish name I could say.
I don't roll the R enough, though.
Tren de Aragua. Is that better, Charlie?
Yeah,
Tren de Aragua?
Aragua.
No.
Aragua. Was that better?
That's
A little better.
All right. Spanglish with Waters. The woman who we just saw, I think, because I'm a mind reader, she wants there to be white migrant gangs. I believe that she is upset, maybe ashamed, embarrassed that most of the criminal gangs are Latin. And she wished they were like English nationals who were committing crimes that need to be deported, like the Cornwallis crew or something like that. I'm sorry, there's not a lot of those people in this country anymore. But white violence in terms of the migrant factor, not a problem. Charlie and I have our own oyster shucker crew, but we're citizens. As far as Jasmine goes, I researched her, and it's never good when I do that. I found out she's single. She's 43. She's never been married. And I'm trying to figure out what makes her tick. I think I can set her up with someone.
Oh my God.
I know a guy in D.C., Emily. He's white. Hopefully that's not a problem, but he will make her happy. And maybe then she will not hate everybody else besides herself so much. So if you're interested, I will set it up. And it would be my pleasure to do it.
Okay. Yes to that. We'll circle back on that. All right. So Jessica, Nicole
That felt
Wallace.
sarcastic.
I was sort of.
She's trying to be
I don't know how to.
polite.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
It was so
she
good.
says-
It was the best thing I
want to
said
know
all
who this
week.
guy is.
Stop it.
I don't think he's real. Tell me later.
I'll tell you
Oh
later.
my God. Jessica, so Nicole Wallace, I wish I didn't feel so gutted. I wish I could stop thinking about those guys being scared in El Salvador. This is the bleeding heart lib. These guys are driving the media narrative. What about the worry and the fear for Americans who were scared here? Like scared for their lives, like Lake and Wright. Like there's so many people who are in this position. Why do they always prioritize the illegal criminals first?
Because the people that she's talking about are not criminals. 75% of the 238 men that were sent to CCOT have no criminal conviction. New data is out on who's been arrested in Los Angeles. 70% of the people who've been taken in, no criminal conviction. Right now, ICE has, according to their own numbers, they've detained 59,000, 47% of them, no criminal convictions. That's what people wanted, worst first. That's not what they're getting, which is why Donald Trump's approval on immigration has plummeted. That's what Nicole Wallace is talking about. That's what Jasmine Crockett is talking about. And I think if you talk to the average person on the street, especially in one of these cities, but if you say, do you consider someone who's here illegally, who has committed no crime on US soil to be a criminal? They would say no. Because the majority of Americans think that if you've been here and you haven't committed a crime, go about your business. We make $25 billion. Yeah, $25 billion in Social Security taxes that they're paying in. These are people being picked up of job sites out of immigration court. Americans don't like that.
But the majority of Americans do support the president's immigration policies, Dana. And at the end of the day, these are elected officials saying this. Well, Tom Homan can't even live with his family because of death threats.
So crossing the border illegally or overstaying your visa illegally is illegal. And if they want to change that, they're in the perfect position to do that. They are in Congress. In addition, I think Jazzy, which I learned that's who they call her on the Gutfeld show when I was on last night, they call her, that's our Jazzy. What a perfect person to say, Mr. President, can I come see you? I'd like a word. I'd like to bring a couple of people. We have an idea. Donald Trump would say, yeah, sure. Come on, let's have a conversation. And if they went and said, we're concerned about these guys. We know they crossed illegally. Okay, they should have to pay a price for that. But they've been lawful ever since. They have kids here. Is there something we could do? Is there something we could put into this big, beautiful bill that might like pass your muster with that you'd be okay with? Could I work with you? Could I try to bring enough Democrats to vote on something like this? Like, if they wanted to come to a solution, they have the perfect person in the Oval Office in order to do that.
But logic
Precisely.
continues.
Oh, precisely.
escaping. I love it.
Yeah, because, I mean, and of course, we saw it in the first term where President Trump tried to make a deal with the Dreamers. Of course, Democrats didn't want to do that because they want the issue and not the solution. Look, if you want to know when people have absolutely nothing constructive to do, they start playing word games. And when you start playing word games with illegal alien, by the way, illegal alien is the actual term that's in federal code.
Right.
So they could change that when they're changing the rules.
Exactly.
When you're playing word games, you don't actually have a solution. And this is why voters have thrown them out of power from the Senate and the White House. I think, look at them as being fundamentally unserious on important issues that matter to them.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.